Okay, now it's time to go to the actual model data. As we remember, in part 1 we found 4 parts in our file with all the data probably required to build these models. Vertices part, faces part, some unknown part 3, and part with names and matrices. Now I cut a little parts of each of these parts, which belongs to one model, the very first model. A little part here, because we know all the sizes. Something from here and here too. And saved these as separate files just for convenience. So let's take a look inside of these 4 parts. The first part is vertices. As we remember, they are indices going from 0 for the first model to some not that big number, like something around 839 probably. So it only these indices only point to a small region inside of these common vertex coordinates for all our models in this file. We know this already. We already even built the model from these indices, and we know it looks like some kind of a vehicle. So everything's fine about this part. We checked that already. Now next part is what we think is faces part. Let's open this. It starts from some kind of face indices. They look normal for me, like it usually looks like that in every modern format. And this is definitely not like the model has only one mesh. It definitely has many submeshes, because these indices go up to 100 and no more, or maybe even 200 somewhere, but not more, not that big. If that would be just one big mesh, these numbers would be much bigger. And this here, we can see they go up to, 200. And then again, they go to small numbers, 0, 4, 5, 6. This is like usually submeshes look like. Well, and then after some, it's somewhere in the middle of a file, they change somehow. You can see now we see some numbers, then 0. Numbers 0. This never happens if that would be just normal face indices. It means there is something different here. So probably somewhere around here, the list of face indices ends, and this takes about that many bytes. So it will be that many face indices. So let's write this down. We have that many face indices in this particular model. Okay. Let's see what goes next. These numbers. We really can't understand what is this and why are these zeros between them. But we can use some kind of different technique for this. We open this other hex editor. And here, if we scroll down to the middle of a file, Yes, you can see how these phase indices look like. They are like monotonals, so like numbers are close to each other. This is normal phase index. And here we can see something like a ladder. That means they have some. This is kind of a table with a particular row size. If we resize this, we can. No, it's even probably even very small, like this one. So only 10 bytes each row. So this is a table of something, probably 5 small numbers. Sometimes this 0 is not 0, we can see 2, even 6 here. 3 numbers that are a bit bigger, and then another small number. All right. And again, we can count a number of such rows, like a number of elements in this table. We can go back to where it starts, here, and then this is where some different table starts. We've seen this table in the first part of the tutorial. Again, we don't know exactly where the table starts and then this table ends. So we can just assume that this is here and divide this by 10, which will be A in hex. So we have that many records in some kind of a table. Like A bytes, 10 bytes each. Okay, now we have this table. It has some small numbers like 32 and 5, 1, 2, 32 again. And between them, there are float numbers. Like, it looks like 6 float numbers, which can be bounding box. And these numbers, they mean something. And it's probably, we can even measure this table. Oh, no. This will be 40 bytes each row. And we can also count number of rows. I already counted that before. There are 98 in hex rows in some kind of a table. Okay? Some numbers are big here. Relatively big, okay. Well, and after this table, the only thing we have left, as we remember, is an array of some indices again. They go from 0, maybe from here, or from here, maybe this 5 is the first element here. Let's assume this one. And then it will be 2F00 by 4 bytes divide. And we have that many indices of something. One more thing we can see here is, this is probably one of the biggest indices here, 8BF. And what's interesting is that we counted the number of elements in the table before that, and we have about that number of elements in that table. So that's possible that these indices in the end of the faces part are indices of that table, whatever this table is. All right, that's all we can say about this part now, because there is nothing that can tell us how many submeshes we have, where every submesh starts here in this face indices table, so we could build a model from them. We don't know anything about that. We can't figure out anything here. So this means the information about submeshes are somewhere else. So let's close this part now and go to the third part, which I believe can be UVs, because we already have a common array of UV coordinates, like floating point numbers, but they are probably common for all models. We need some way to connect them with this part 3. So this part is irregular. Of course, we can find some region here which looks more logical. We can see some random numbers here, like 4 bytes. This part is measured in elements of 4 bytes. When we found the size of this part in the header, as I remember, we had this written in 4-byte parts. So, and this is something small again. It goes up, and until the end it's only 300 or 500 here. These numbers are, yeah, from 0 to something about 500. What can this be? We don't have anything like this here or in our model table. Yeah, and it looks like in some parts of this they go like a random number 4 bytes, then this small index of something, random number again, and this small index again. And here in the beginning, it looks like there is a number, 2 small numbers, a number, 2 small numbers. Well, now, this can really be UV indices, because some submeshes may have one pair of UVs, like this one, number 38, and a second pair, 39, and some other submesh. Well, this will be 2 pair of UVs, and this one may have 1 pair of UVs each vertex. This is very logical, okay? And, you know, actually, let's check some other model. This was here. And if we go to data of the very last model here, we have this offset recorded. Okay, we see the same pattern here, like some kind of a random number. We don't know what this is. And then these indices go up to 73 something. And this 73 is one of the numbers in the very beginning of the header of this whole file. And as we believed, this was a number of vertices in this first table, and this was a number of UVs in this second part of a float, big float array. Then, actually, this part 3 can actually contain UVs. And these numbers, these small numbers, they are UV indices in this big array. At least their count correspond. We can't check this right now because we can't even build a model because we don't have faces. But yeah, we can check the count for each particular model. We can check it here because some records will be 12 bytes, some will be 8 bytes, like here. We can count them, like manual 1, 2, 3. This will take forever. But there are some models here which have only one pair of UVs for every vertex. And for this model, I already did this before. The count of these records actually correspond to a number of vertices in the model. So it's safe to say that this part is UV's part and something else here. So we need some way again to tell which vertices inside of a model will have one pair of UVs and which will have two pairs, and maybe even three pairs. Again, this information will be somewhere else. And now, what about this part? This what looks like random numbers. If we look at them carefully, we can see that these bytes can be anything, and this highest byte will always be less than 3f, which means it will be the two highest bits are never used. And that means this can be 30 bits, can be 3 times 10 bits. This can be some 3 numbers packed into 4 bytes. The most logical will be it can be normals for each vertex, because we know this part contains data for each vertex in the model. Well, we can try checking this. If we represent this as bits, we can see this one number. This will be 9 zeros and then 1, 10 zeros here. Yeah, and 9 zeros again and 1. Yeah, this can really be 10 bits, 10 bits, and 10 bits. And these two highest bits will be always zeros. So we can take another model, not this one, or maybe we can even take a part of this model, which is regular, like this part. Read all these numbers, split them by 10 bits, 10 bits, 10 bits, 10 bits, and represent that as some small geometry file like we did in first part of this tutorial and loaded it into Blender. Let's do this. Okay, this looks like a perfect sphere. Like every 3 coordinates inside of these numbers, they are one vertex here in this sphere. And that means, that actually means these can be normals or maybe tangents. They are all normalized vectors here inside of this. It's not in the center because these numbers are represented as integers. So this will be 0. That will be maximum integer. And a center of the sphere will be somewhere in the middle of that. So we know how do they code these coordinates. And this thing here in this part contains normals and UV indices for each vertex in this model. Okay, this part, we already know what this part contains, but again, we can't actually use it right now because we don't know if this data belongs to a vertex number 10 or 1000 inside of this model, and we don't know which of them have 2 pairs of UVs and which have only 1 pair. That's all for this part now.